of 5 children. 5 are my own. 1 I've had through foster care for 2.5 years. I work in the capacity of addictions at the FSIN and the wellness department, doing program delivery and also developing programs for First Nations to deliver.
At present time, I'm the chief of our community, the Keast Coast First Nation. Me and my wife Gladys, we have 5 daughters. We have 5 grandchildren, and all our daughters have left home with the exception of a 16-year-old.
We have 7 daughters and 1 son. First, we had 3 girls, then our son, and we had some more girls after that.
The healing process is not an easy thing, simply because habits, once they become habit, like alcoholism, pretty hard to break, but it can be done.
I was 6.5, going on 7. I was sent here by a family member that actually an uncle that had made arrangements for myself and 5 older siblings to get put in the boarding school. My father was drinking a lot. I don't recall my mother being around at the time. And my grandmother was getting old, too old to look after a lot of kids. So we were sent here. It was really scary. I remember chasing the vehicle that brought me here. Pulling up to the school and chasing the vehicle, not wanting to be left here, being really scared, looking at this big red brick building, not knowing where I was or what we were doing here. Nobody explained it to us. Nobody told us that we were actually being sent to a boarding school. They just more or less made the arrangements and dropped us off, and this is where we stayed.
When I was born, my mom did not want to pick me up, so my grandparents picked me up. It was February of 1953. They picked me up from the hospital because my mom didn't want to raise me. And then when I was 6 years old, I was with my grandparents, and Indian Affairs officials come to my grandparents and come and pick me up. And I recall that day I was holding on to my grandpa, and the officials dragged me into my car and took me away. And I cried probably all that day. And then when I got to the school, I seen other people, other little kids from our community, and I got a little comfort then, and we were all totally lost, and with total strangers within the school. There's white instructors, supervisors, and we all got haircuts, got into the school all showered, powder put all over us, criticized, for what we were, where we came from.
It was the winter of 1935, and I was there till 1942. My life has been such that Delmos was just another home for me, simply because when I was, the summer I was 3-4 years old, my parents separated, and from then on, it was just a matter of being shunted from one family to another, relatives, eh? So I suppose this was for them, for the relatives, that I am not blaming them, but I imagine they found a way to find a home for me, and that's how that came about.
When I first arrived there, I don't remember getting served or supper or anything like that. It's just they started cleaning my hair. There was a whole bunch of us. They put coal oil on our hair, and then they chopped off my hair. I had braids, long hair, and that night it was a restless sleep for me. I don't, scared and in a strange place.
He would sexually assault us whenever he had a chance, which was quite often, considering that his wife was our childcare worker. He had access to us quite a bit. It was easy for him to come into the dorm at night and do whatever he pleased. The area back in there was our beds. I remember just beginning to fall asleep, and I'd hear the door open, and I'd instantly be wide awake because I'd know who it was. Full of fear. Some nights he'd come after me. Other nights I'd watch him go after other girls. And being 7, 8, and 9 years old, watching him assault other girls, I'd think better them than me on that night. Pedophile's dream.
I used to go to infirmary every day, every night. The supervisor a woman supervisor sexually abused me. In all those years, I always thought it was okay what she was doing to me. This lady would always start off rubbing me down, and I was always told never to say anything. And it just come out. within the past 4 or 5 years. But I always wondered why I always got paid as a student for Best Child of the Year. In the 7 years I was there, I was paid every year. I always thought it was the right thing. There was nothing wrong with it. And it's something that I hid for 40 years. And I still get memories of that on a daily basis. Every time I have a shower, I get the memory of the residential school. Every time I go to get a haircut, there's a memory. Or a dentist, there's a memory.
I was scared from, speaking for myself, I was scared. I've never seen a fire. And, it was a lot of flames and a lot of stuff flying out of that building. I don't believe that anybody was injured, but there used to be some students sick. My older sister was sick. They've forgotten about her in the dorm, and she noticed these flames, but she made it out of there on her own. There could have been some serious injuries, but I don't know. Probably everybody panicked, never even thought of checking everybody. When it burned down, my parents took me to see a doctor. That's when they found out I had TB. I had it both lungs. It was really so I had to spend a year and a half, almost 13 months in the hospital. There's a lot of other girls that had TB because we never gotten checked for we never went for examinations to see a doctor, even a dentist. A regular doctor came to check our teeth. And
these stairs remind me of getting into trouble. I've scrubbed these stairs I don't know how many times with my toothbrush. And I'd have to use the same one to brush my teeth the next day. There's a lot of pipes on the first floor. Washing pipes was another form of punishment. We'd have to clean them. They became really dusty, and whoever got into trouble got the wonderful job of cleaning them, which took a really long time because you'd have to move your ladder every foot or so in order to get down your ladder and move it, go back up, wash the pipes. Usually took right up until bedtime, and you'd go to bed with a really sore back from reaching up.
So I ran for a council membership in the community, and I was one of the youngest members that ever ran, and I got in. I served my community as council member for 8 years. During my council period, I started my family. Me and Gladys here, we struggled a lot because when I was councillor, I didn't get paid to be councillor. Just the wife was working. We were living on one salary. I was always drinking, leaving my wife, my children. Even went as far as abusing my wife physically. Went as far as being a closet drinker, drinking alone. And it affected my work at the tribal council, my alcohol. I even went as far as drugs. And I hid it off everybody for many years. Then I started going to counseling, rehab centers, stay sober for a while, then sneak a drink and fall off and back on again. I went to the point of living in denial. I even went around saying that there was nothing wrong with residential schools. I even made public statements towards it. And that's the denial that I was in for many years, until I went into counseling and until I seen a counselors and a therapist. Then I started going back in my life and explaining what I went through, what happened, and that's when my therapist justified to me that, well, that's things that happen to you is sexual abuse and physical abuse.
This used to be the priests, the fathers' rectory. This is where they lived. And I suppose this is probably one of the first buildings built in Delmas, So the school used to be, well, the line used to run that way, and the school used to sit right about there somewhere on the high ground. The school, they had a team with the dray or haul coal from the elevators, and this is where they used to dump coal. It was too heavy to destroy. It's a big concrete box, so to speak. So that's all that's left of Delmas boarding school.
Prison inside the prison. I had told some kids about it that I went to school with, and they didn't believe me because I never did make it as far as past the boilers to get down here. I can see why they'd want to tear these places down, with knowing that people have memories of places like this. My dad said that they used to bring kids down here and leave them down here as a punishment. When I found it, I must have been about 9 or 10 years old. I had come looking for this room specifically to see if it was really here, to see if my dad was telling the truth. And when I found it, there was stalls, wooden partitioners. And my dad said that they would get left down here for days at a time as punishment. My dad was left in here for fighting. And my dad's battled with alcohol since leaving this place. It's creepy.
I remember developing a phobia, of big buildings, big empty buildings, where I was all by myself. I was actually scared to go inside that building simply because I was all by myself. I much sooner stay outside, thank God for summers, so I stayed outside most of the time, just went to sleep. I knew I was missing something, simply because I didn't have no safe port to run into if I had crying or, hurt or something. I had no one.
They put fear in you when you attended a boarding school. Like you were going to go to hell and all that stuff. All that things, they kind of brainwashed you, I guess. This one time too, we were playing We were a bunch of other girls my age. We were playing outside, like Red Pheasant and Mosquito. They had, you know, they do a lot of sun dances, and the girls decided to have a sun dance. But we didn't know, girls from here didn't know too much about it, but the little girls said, well, leave it up to us, we'll decide, we'll put it up. They said, and they tore up a sheet, you know, they made, you know, those flags and everything, and they gave us a crash lesson how to dance and blew those whistles. We were busy doing this, and one of my cousins, Leona, was dancing. She was dancing against the sun, didn't see the sister, but we seen her coming. We didn't know Leona was dancing with her eyes closed, Leona Tutusis. We just left her there, and the sister just came and grabbed her, I guess, over here and gave her a good kick. Yeah. And we used to talk Cree, and, you know, the sisters couldn't be everywhere, I guess, and we learned it. That's how we kept our language, I guess. It's a good thing it burned down, too.
I was really athletic myself growing up, and I don't know, probably would have given an arm or a leg if I could have had my parents come and watch me win gold in one of the sports that I was involved in, and I was involved in a lot of sports. I played minor hockey, broom ball. I played women's fastball at the age of 12. I really excelled in athletics, and to see the look on their face when they look up and see you in the stands and they start waving, you know. At 13, he kind of loses all his coolness and he's like, oh, there's my mom. I would have loved to experience what he feels when he sees me with his grandparents in the stand. He knows that all his parents are here, and he skates even harder. This being his first year of contact hockey, I think he did feel like he won the Stanley Cup tonight. And in my heart, it was the Stanley Cup because it's, you know, I can watch adults senior hockey and I don't get as excited. It's just seeing him out there and losing my voice after every game that makes it all worthwhile. Seeing him smile, seeing him throw his arms in the air after they score a goal.
Congratulations. You did it again.
I had pressed charges against the perpetrator. He, from what I knew, he had gotten a teaching degree, and he was going to start teaching at the school where my son was going to school. And that's the only thing that motivated me to press charges or to do anything about it, was the fact that he was going to be around one of my kids and knowing that he could get after them too, knowing what his behaviors were and that no kid was safe around him, basically. I didn't want him around my kid, and I went to the RCMP and pressed charges. And having to go back into that hurt, talking to the RCMP and doing the interview and remembering the assaults and having flashbacks, I chose to stay drunk. That was my way of dealing with it, because then I didn't have to feel. The alcohol it numbed me for about a year and a half. He did get convicted to a lesser charge, not the initial charge of child molestation. He was convicted of a lesser charge of, I believe it's called sexual interference. And he was convicted and sentenced to 18 months which he served a third of, and he was out. What he did to me and to the other kids was really horrible and terrible, but he wasn't born a monster. Like, he wasn't born a child molester. It's a learned behavior, and somebody did something to him really horrible for him to do that to myself and how many other kids. And I don't think it's by coincidence. A lot of the girls that I grew up with in this school became prostitutes at a young age. It's not by coincidence that all these girls turn to that lifestyle. Nobody goes willingly into a lifestyle like that unless they're leaving something even worse behind. And in this case, it was the school.
The residential school discussions were happening in the community. And that's, as a leader, I figured it is my responsibility to come forth. And if anything is going to happen within the community, it's got to come from the leadership. And at the time when I started dealing with it, I said it as a political statement. But when reality come in, when I realized how the issues affected our community, from a political issue, it turned into a personal issue, a realistic issue, that it's something that's affecting me personally. And also even my council members, even my staff, and even families within the community. Everybody was talking about the surface of the events and what happened, of how it is affecting families, the secrets that were in the closets. When are we meeting in the morning? And what better place to start was with myself as an individual and as a leader. And I felt it was my responsibility as a leader to bring that all out. We got some programs going on within our community that the Healing Foundation funds. One is an elders program. It deals with residential school issues. That's one group, and we also got another program in dealing with the sexual abuse issues, how to cope with them, how to deal with them. And what we're working towards is a residential school conference, and the main goal and objective of that residential school conference is to bring survivors to a place to tell their story.
We're always had been a close-knit family to begin with anyway. Yeah, all of my children, we're all close. That youngest daughter of mine married a guy from Oklahoma. So we got to go and see Oklahoma 3 times, I think we went down for a visit. And another one was married in Washington. And that one moved back last September, back here. And she's working for Indian Health over here in North Battlefield. And the boy works at the store over here, my big son, he's about 6'4". And most of the family are close, except for one that is now way up northern Manitoba, just below the 59th parallel, a place called Tadouli-Lake. And she's a teacher out there, and she seems to like it. So, but anyway, this is the idea that I picked up out of boarding school. I told myself once I sobered up that no way I'm going to have my kids go through what I went through. So I kept them together. Didn't send them to boarding school, just no way, you know. And it's worked for me. Okay, I'm ready to break Smith's quarter horse. That's old Dan George used to say.
And I talked to some of the people that were at the sweat, and that's where I heard the stories about people watching it burn, hearing screams. And I asked them, are you sure it was screams? Because I know fire makes a lot of noises. They said no, it was screams. They were talking about how people's spirits get trapped in some place when they die a horrible death. There must be a lot of trapped spirits in this place. My initial reaction is to say all that damn cleaning for nothing. I don't know, they must have thought this building was going to stand forever, why they always wanted it cleaned from the bottom up. All I know is that my girl won't ever have to wash pipes here. Nobody will ever sneak up to her bed in the middle of the night. She won't have to spend all of her youth walking on eggshells, wondering who's coming around the next corner. Tonight, the only worry she has is if she's going to win her soccer game. Okay?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, specifically survivors, were looking forward to the day it was going to be torn down. This is not the same as tearing it down. I don't think so anyway. It doesn't bring the same closure. Part of me is smiling inside because it's gone. My kids don't ever have to be subject to anything like this. They never have to know what went on behind these walls. No, they do know what went on behind these walls. They never have to go through what their grandparents and what their parents went through, staying in these places. Cycle stops here.
Well, okay, I'm 73. I'm in good shape, you know, for a 73-year-old. These are the things that keep me in shape, eh? Like working with them and, you know, moving around. Animals are just like, somewhat like people, eh? They've got, each and every one is different from, they're not all the same just because they're horses. And we're not all the same because we're people. We all each have different temperaments, you know, way of going. It's how we horse people say it. As far as really specializing in having my own stud and my own, you know, brood mares and all that, I don't think I'd be able to afford going into that kind of thing. Eh? Staying small, something just for something for me to do. Eh?
The Assembly of First Nations have established a governance institute as well, and the Yukon Council of First Nations have also established a governance institute, and we've been in contact with those two parties to make sure that we...
Mr. Speaker, Chief of the Federation, the Executive, and the Chiefs of the Assembly, the residential school issue is a very important issue. It impacts each and every community member and every family. And that is why, as chief of my community and my neighboring chiefs, we're putting a residential school conference together. And I'm asking each and every one of you to consider attending that conference, or even sending survivors to that conference.
Do a victory song for us here. We can start the
I guess as far as locally here, what do you hope that one of the members here takes from this conference and leaves with?
Well, what I expect out of this within my community is to realize, keeping the silence is not going to do any good. There's communities across this country that don't want to touch the issue of residential school, but it's the social impact of the community that it has. It's happening.
Coming from an isolated community called Mississippi, that a plane landed to pick us up, all of us who were 6 years old, sent off to a residential school called Letuk Indian Residential School. Dealing with the issue of residential schools, we believe, should be spearheaded by the survivors themselves. And I commend the organizers of this event for your journey of healing. We call it recovery to healing.
There's many students today that are living, that are not coming forward. Mm-hmm. And maybe what I'm speaking about, people are going to remember, yes, he's right, and I hope that's what comes out of this. It's the breaking of the silence within our communities, within your friends. You got friends, each and every one of us got grandchildren, we got relatives, we got uncles. And I got some uncles maybe that I haven't even shared. And I've got relatives that went to the grave, with their secrets. But those are just some of the things I want to share with you guys which you could identify with, either where you went to school or other people that you hear stories from.
One of the things that I encounter a lot is running into people that I went to school with. And because I know that they were abused by the same individual that abused me, because I used to watch him go to their bed. And I had said this before, on that particular night, being 7 or 8 years old, I'd think, oh, good, it's her tonight, it's not me. But when I see these individuals, they pretend like they don't know you because of the shame. Mm-hmm. And I remember doing that up until a few years ago, is seeing somebody from school and turning my back on them because of the guilt and the shame that I carried.
The worst thing about it is the perpetrators that were there. And the person that's doing that done that to me, I just found out last week that she's dying of cancer. And I pray for that woman. I forgive that woman. And it's hard, but it's something that I have to live with for the rest of my life, and she has to live with the short time that she's got left on this earth.
I think the only real good thing I ever came out of there with was that form of regimentation we used to have. Be here at a certain time, be here at a certain time. I applied that throughout my life. I can honestly say I've never been fired. because I was there. I was committed to whatever I wanted to do, eh? And that's one of the good things that ever came out of the boarding school system.
It was such an experience for me too, like leaving a safe home. We weren't rich, but it was a safe home. And to enter a place, like it was I was scared when I got there, like, 'cause I didn't know. It wasn't a pleasant place.
Did you experience fear before you went to school?
No. I had no reason to fear. Like I had
Neither did I.
Yeah. But I still, to be honest, I still have fear. I never wear. I don't care for leather coats, leather shoes, because it really. I got traumatized when I never got a strap, but when the other little kids got strapped right in front of us. Big thick strap, and the sound, I can still hear.
That's one of the issues that I still address today, is when I went to that school, like you could sense a lot of, I guess you would call it negative energy. Mm-hmm. And you woke up in fear, you went to bed in fear, fearful that somebody's going to come to your bed and bother you. You went to school in fear, fearful that somebody's going to beat you up. You went to all your meals full of fear, anxiety. I don't ever remember being completely relaxed while in that school.
When we went to confessions, we had to make up our sins. And a lot of times we listened to the 10 Commandments. We tried to pick up something from the 10 Commandments, and a lot of times we were just little girls about 7 years old, 8 years old, 6. We didn't even know the word adultery meant. And we used to go confession to the priest, and the priest would, listen. And you say, I have sinned, and I had bad thoughts, and I did bad things, and then I committed adultery. And the priest never corrected us. We laugh about those things now because we didn't understand them.
In our Cree language, we used to say Nehio. It kind of came down to Nehio, somewhere along the line. From what I can tell, well, my dad used to say it. It used to be four-body, Nehio. And there's this Nehio, there's the little boy, the child in you, the young person, the parent, and the elder. These are the four that are in you. I'm in the elder part now. And this little boy, this sad little boy is still there, in here. Help.
This is the first time I've heard stories from these individuals. And I heard fear. I heard about the buildings being unsanitary. By the time I got there, it was one of the cleanest places I'd ever been in my life. I came from a house where there was no running water and still using a slop pail in wintertime and going to the outhouse summertime, bathing in a silver steel bathtub, then going into an environment where the floors have to be cleaned morning and night, where you have to brush your teeth 3 times a day, where you line up wash your hands and get your hands inspected before you get to eat, before you get to walk into the dining room. Given my number 14. Written on everything that you own, your toothbrush.
It's one of my numbers, 14.
That was my number too.
62.
62.
170.
When we were talking about leadership and wellness, and when Matthew Kuhnka made that remark about, our leadership needs to sober up, I photocopied that article and I put it everywhere in the FSIN building, and I went round at the end of the day to see if it was still there, and most of them had been ripped off the wall. I still have mine in my office. And I don't know you, but I know of you, and I know that you don't sugarcoat shit. Like, you say, it comes out like you think it. And I think that's the best way to be, especially in politics. And I don't know. Just from a personal standpoint, for you to stand up there and say, yeah, it happened to me. Yeah, I'm a sick man. Yeah, I drink. And I don't want to carry this shit no more. Like to have to carry everybody's opinions, I guess. Yeah. All the gossip that our political world evolves in. I admire you for saying, for acknowledging it, for not pretending.
With the little things I had, I'm happy, satisfied the way I was brought up, but I don't have any. I'm not mad at my parents or anything for letting me go to that fearful place. I had to go to school for a short time. Yeah. That's all I'm pleased with myself. I'm happy with myself.
Somebody much like Wally here told me that you're right, no matter where you are, what you're doing, you're right where you need to be. For me, it's exercising self-will to always respect everything around. I had a lot of confusion too when it came to God. Mm-hmm. I quit going to church completely after leaving school. The Sunday school messed me right up. They'd tell us that we came from Adam and Eve, and then I'd go to science class in the afternoon, and then they told me that we came from monkeys, and I didn't know where I came from. So it's finding that higher power, I guess, and believing in Him and in yourself. Yeah. I agree with you there, because that's what I have. That's all I have.
I never cease to be amazed at what has happened to us as a people. All that shit that we've had to go through, that we've been put through as a people. Detribalization, you name it, all that crap. And the thing that amazes me is we're still here. We're still beating. There's something to that. Whether we like to believe it or not, but there's a reason. Things don't just happen. There's a reason for what they did to us. There was a reason why they did it. Why are we still here? Why did they fail?